The pig is constantly in search of new subjects.
Saw X, or Sax, as I've been calling it around the house, is a new entry in the long-running Saw series. If you've been living off the grid and only recently rejoined society, the Saw series is a giant mistake created by Lee Whannell and James Wan. And while James Wan has moved on to making bigger and better things, and Lee Whannell is making, the Saw series has stagnantly remained in the same place as before, something that probably shouldn't have over 10 sequels and a spin-off, but does, for some weird reason. Oh well, nothing to be done about it now. There have been plenty of ideas floating around for years on how to fix the Saw movies. Although, if you look at the box office returns, it seems they're totally fine and don't need fixing at all. I will admit that I, too, have given ideas as to how to fix the series, but they tend to start with, we'd better not. Oh, don't do that. We don't have to. Look, man, I can reason with you. But you know what? I'm feeling optimistic, so here is a small list of things the Saw movies need to make them not total shit. Number 1, an interesting character. The people that get killed in these movies are identical and interchangeable. Name the person who died in this trap. Good job, that's 10 points for you, you fucking nerd. It would be cool if there were, I don't know, a character in the series that had some level of depth or conflict that could make for compelling drama. They could create a new character, or even reintroduce an older character with some new spin. But I think we all know someone who could easily become the linchpin for all the drama in the story. Amanda! Remember when Dead by Daylight did that Saw DLC?
The pig is constantly in search of new subjects.
Number 2, cool traps. Who cares who lives and dies, really? Who cares if they learned their lesson or if their trap was fair or anything like that? I know I don't. I just like to see people die. That's why I bought my ticket. That's why I went to the movie theater at 10 p.m. because other people terrify me. That's why I bought booze. I mean popcorn. I want to watch people get torn apart by completely unenthusiastic machines. It's like watching people get chewed up by an escalator or farm equipment or textile machines. Only when I tell my friends I watch those, suddenly everyone thinks I'm a freak. In Saw, it's okay to joy in squirming around at machine-based torture. Here, let me show you the box office again. You know you're just like me. You don't want to admit it. Number 3, the movie needs intrigue. What's going on that leads people to make generally horrible things happen to other people? What's behind it? Motivation? Something for us all to feel like little detectives. Who did the murder today? Why did they do that? What does this murder mean? We want to touch the darkness and feel like we can understand it, even feel challenged when we can empathize with where it all comes from. If we understand, suddenly the traps become more than just people getting torn apart by careless machines. Suddenly, it has meaning. Number 4, a big twist. I know people have talked to death about how forced twists in these movies either make no sense or come across as bullshit that's unearned. I agree with you, but I will give the benefit of the doubt that most people aren't that smart. The ending of Inception, this is not. This series is trash, and I accept that. But it could be elevated trash with the inclusion of at least an interesting twist that pulls us into a different place than we were thinking. Agatha Christie did this 66 fucking times.
It's easy. Not hard. I said it's easy. Not hard. There's never been an easier way to make $1 billion. It's easy. And here's the fun part. It's easy. What's the matter? You don't want to make $1 billion?
But every Saw twist blows. They blow the entire intrigue of the movie every single time. If the twist at least gave us some new perspective or added to the conflict, wouldn't that rule? I think it would. I'd be completely okay with it. So with all that said, I'm now going to say something crazy. I liked Saw 10, Saw X. I liked it a lot, actually. I walked out of the theater cleaning the shit out of my pants. I thought they knocked it out of the park. Specifically 4 directions that I maybe mentioned earlier. All the directions that mattered, really. I mean, if you're asking me. Number 1, an interesting character. So for the first time in forever, we have a movie where the main character isn't some boring cop. Not only that, but it's the only character we actually have any interest in. It's John Kramer, and he's trying to get rid of the cancer that's killing him. He tries to cope with it with therapy. He talks to his doctor and tries to come to terms with it, but then he gets African princed into going to Mexico for an experimental treatment by a bunch of con men. There's even a moment where he thinks he's cured and gets to look forward to the rest of his life, and he cries. He sees the sun and he cries. A beautiful moment in such a shit show of a series. We even get a moment of crushing disappointment where he realizes he's been conned. He gets frustrated and feels hopeless. Then he decides to get even, and it's exactly what we want from the movie. We're like, yes, I agree. John, you fucked those fake doctors up. Then he calls up Amanda, and we're like, yeah. We get both. And Amanda's conflicted because she loves John, and it's like losing her father, and she has doubts in his plan, and that's beautiful drama. Then when he ultimately succeeds, there's a huge satisfaction to him being himself in the face of torment. He's like, nobody fucks with me, and goddamn, that's what we needed. That's the sauce. A moment of real triumph for John, even though he's still dying, but at least he stood up to some truly despicable people, and while we may not agree with his methods, we at least understand and empathize to an extent. Number 2, the traps are dope. Not only is this maybe the goriest and most cringeworthy Saw movie in the whole killing people with machines way, but it also carries a lot of meaning and motivation with it. The first guy has like bombs on his arms and he's got to cut them off, and when he succeeds, Jigsaw brings him medical help. Then we move to the main trap, which is a bunch of people with awkwardly strong stomachs considering the situation, chained in a room and forced to watch each other die. The first girl has to cut off her leg and suck out bone marrow in 3 minutes, which isn't enough time to do that, so she gets her head cut off. It's such a big "you're fucked" moment. Jigsaw means business, and the traps are more unfair than ever. It's not about earning your right to live anymore. You just have to desperately hope that the conditions are in your favor, and spoilers, they aren't. The second guy gets a drill and cuts open his fucking brain and has to pull out a piece of it and dissolve it in a slow enzyme. Like, he even does it and comes close. But 3 minutes sure isn't enough time, so he gets shredded, and it might be the most awful Saw trap I've ever seen. It's so fucking crazy. Then the last trap is a thing where 2 people get waterboarded with blood, but there's a shift where Jigsaw himself gets put in the trap by the main antagonist that sends her boyfriend to free her, but the trap is built for 2, and clearly it's meant to be Amanda and John, but then this little kid is playing soccer and he gets put in the trap, but John made friends with him, so they work together to get out of the situation. It's a beautiful moment of serious tension. Jigsaw feels guilt and regret that the boy got involved, but then they work together to get out, and the last trap is a bit weaker, given it's just a room filling with gas and the main antagonist and her boyfriend fighting to breathe out of like a single hole. But we can let that slide for the moment when Jigsaw just leaves her in the gas room with her head sticking out. Glorious nonchalance. And the soccer boy even gets a duffel bag of money. Number 3. I don't need to get into this because I already mostly covered it, but the movie has intrigue. We understand John's plight and begrudgingly accept his decision. He could have walked away, but he didn't, and we get why. He feels regret for the boy's involvement. He's still dying at the end, but at least he knows who he is, and isn't that what we all want in the end? We get Amanda's feelings, and we get the antagonist's bitter desire to get over everyone else, just to get ahead. It all makes perfect dramatic sense, which is not something you thought you'd be saying at the end of a Saw movie, is it? Number 4. The big twist. Okay, so there kinda isn't one. Like, the guy was the antagonist's boyfriend, which we didn't know. That ain't shit. The real bit is when the boy gets involved because it was something Jigsaw didn't anticipate, which never happens. It reveals that he's not some all-knowing robot man, he's human, and we love that. It's the right way to use a narrative twist. Less twist is actually good when it's not some dumb, blatant, whoa, you didn't see this coming bullshit. I like it. So if you're you're like me, a begrudging fan of this shit show of a series, the film delivered on everything you could want. I am tempted to call it the only Saw movie that I like. I don't harbor a lot of love for the first movie, and I don't think many of us really did. We all saw this as being an ongoing story with some really interesting avenues to explore, but that never really happened. They never explored those avenues. It was always weak as shit and trying to maintain the whole house of cards. But this movie throws everything out and says, here's a fucking movie. It's not capitulating for past mistakes. It's not telling you you're stupid. It's just a good movie on its own merits, which makes it different than everything that followed the original Saw movie. That said, I have a couple little complaints or questions that I'm going to bring up because, well, it's funny. Number one, can Jigsaw ever really say he gives people the choice to live or die when the task is like literally impossible? The movie engages in that question a lot, but it's not even a question at all. We know who is going to live or die based on how cool the trap is when they get locked in it. The movie makes a promise and it fulfills it every time. The girl that gets chained up and has to break her arm and leg, it's weak and it's uncinematic and it's forgettable, so of course she lives. Matter of fact, I bet you thought I forgot about that when I was talking about how strong the traps were previously, and the truth is, I did. I forgot. Number two, also no one survives anyway. What? Was Amanda gonna drive everyone to the hospital if they succeeded? I doubt it. Matter of fact, it didn't work with the long-term plan. Everyone was dead from the start. There was no survival. Why pretend that there is? There's a whole bit about how they're gonna drive the one girl to the hospital even though A, they don't have time, and B, the entire plan revolves around what happens like almost immediately next, which made no room for anybody to take anybody to the hospital. Everyone was dead from the get-go. I don't understand why there was even a debate about this. 3, I think the constant flashbacks to things that literally just happened is kind of stupid. I can't tell you how many times the movie will just cut back to things that happened 5 minutes of runtime ago and be like, look, we're paying it off. We know what just happened. We watched the movie too. Stop that. And that's all I got. It's a good movie. It's really good. I think this is a great place to stop. No more movies now. They took care of it. They gave us everything we were always promised. I'm happy. Let's just toss this in the bin. But this one will be around for a while. This is the only great movie out of all of them. So, let's put that badge on our vest and just go ahead and get the fuck out of town while we're ahead.
The pig is constantly in search of new subjects.
Okay, so I'll admit I haven't been working on hella videos lately. I took a long break to reevaluate my purpose and get my life in order. And while I was gone, Patreon took a weird shit, and a lot of people got their pledges outright deleted by Patreon. So if you support me on Patreon or would like to, please check on your pledge to make sure it's still there. Also, Patreon is how I make all the money I need to survive, which is always getting more expensive. So please consider giving me $1 on Patreon and supporting all the things that I do. Give this video a like and share it with your, weird, creepy, disgusting friends. Speaking of things I do, I have written 2 books now. Number 1, Fluids, and number 2, Girl Flesh, both about lesbians in dire situations. I just signed to Hear Us Scream Publishing, and I am planning to reissue both books with new covers and release my new book, currently titled Neve Fires Her Gun, through them very soon. However, this brings up a funky little fun thing. My old editions of the books are about to become an out-of-print rarity. There's only going to be a few more in print before the changeover, so I've decided to release 100 copies of each, also signed, on my Bandcamp right now at time of posting. You can pick one up if you reside in the United States, as overseas shipping is a pain and difficult, and a lot of people don't end up getting their books and then they get mad at me. But for those overseas, you can pick up an unsigned one that I can have printed in your home country and shipped to you. It's a whole rigmarole. All the information for that is in the description. Thank you so much for supporting my work. I'm slowly writing my whole thing, but it takes a while to get established. I'm trying to do more reviews. I'm going to try to do more YouTube content in this sort of more bite-sized, fun way. Not just with new stuff, but I'm going to try to do, some retrospectives too. Just stuff that I'm interested in or whatever. And also Halloween's coming. You got to have some spooky content for Halloween, Thank you all for watching. I've been May, and I will see you next time.